Welcome to Back from the Abyss. I'm Dr. Craig Heacock. This is the final story of Season 5. In 2 weeks, Chris and I will wrap up the season with the fishbowl. I see today's story as a case study in resilience. Now, I've long been fascinated with resilience, how and why some people emerge from traumatic childhoods and go on to become psychologically healthy adults. In particular, I'm even more drawn to stories of how people raised with chaotic or abusive or neglectful mothers can grow into kind, loving, and connected adults. Christina grew up with a tumultuous and mentally ill mother, an older brother who decompensated into psychosis and frightening aggression, and just one healthy family member, her father. We explore both the wounding of having a desperately ill parent as well as the profound gift of having another parent able to provide love and support. Christina suffered terribly from these maternal wounds, but she was also able to finally emerge as a healthy, grateful, wise, and deeply caring adult. Initially drawn to nursing, she eventually transitioned into working as a psychiatric nurse practitioner, which I think has been her true calling all along. She just needed to work through the unfinished business of her childhood so she could then help others with their mental and emotional despair. This story is in 2 parts. First, Christina shares her story. Then she and I go meta and explore the behind-the-scenes preparation for this episode. 2 of the themes that emerge in the latter part are storytelling as integration and vulnerability as part of healing. And Christina does a beautiful job at describing how the process of pulling her story together and unearthing these often brutal memories allowed her to find a deeper sense of peace, acceptance, and self-affirmation. Now, one note here before we begin. This episode contains a description of animal cruelty, which might be very difficult for some listeners, so please feel free to stop here if you think this might include you.
Who was my family? My family consisted of my dad, my mom, my brother who's 4 or 5 years older, and me. Growing up, I was a pretty joyful, playful kid, always just kind of like, not alone. I wouldn't call it a loner. I was very sociable, but I was never bored. I was always barefoot, super happy, very outgoing, funny, athletic, playful. My dad, really, he's just my best friend. He has taught me everything I know about life and beauty and nature and loving and how to get through darkness. I think a story that really encapsulates, maybe is a good word, or kind of paints a picture of my dad is, he's a sailor. And one time when we were sailing, we were off the dry Tortugas heading back up to Naples, and the wind was in our face and there was a huge storm. And my dad and I were the only ones that knew how to sail. There were a couple of other people on the boat, and not my mom or my brother, but a few other people who were all seasick. And the auto helm had broke. And so, which the auto helm, for those non-sailors, is something that you can literally set the navigation, and the boat kind of steers itself. And so we were having to take watch 3 hours and 3 hours. And the storm had some waves were 15 feet high, where we'd be at the bottom of a wave and looking up at the crest of the wave, and the boat surprisingly was just bopping around. And I looked over at my dad, who was just so calm, and the ocean around us was just wild, and he just looked at me and he smiled and he's like, "Do you feel that?" and I did. I felt how peaceful it was, and also how small we are in this world, and just how insignificant we are, but also how beautiful life is. So I think that really kind of is a great story and memory that I always have of my dad, and also brings up kind of how my mom was.
So he was the captain of the ship. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So my mom she was that storm. She was absolutely gorgeous and spent quite a bit of time being gorgeous. But she was kind of like the sky, real blue and sunny and beautiful and not very warm, but beautiful. And then always on the horizon, there was like these dark clouds that you just didn't know when they were going to come or how fast they were going to come. She was kind of that storm that I had just talked about with my dad, or kind of, I always describe her as a hurricane, just full of chaos and unpredictable. My brother, yeah, he was real funny and really funny, like had the best sense of humor and really playful. He was curious. He was a real curious kid and kind when he was really little. And then as he started to get older, he had some darker moments. I remember when he started to get even more dark, he would like find these frogs that were at the beach, and he'd literally like pull the frogs apart and like throw them against the wall. Yeah, it was really disturbing. As he got older, he kind of just fell into an abyss of darkness. One of my last memories of him was walking into a room where he had my dad's shotgun in his mouth. He was crying. He wasn't upset. He wasn't visibly he was just crying, and he had the shotgun in his mouth. Yeah. That was one of the last times I saw him.
Had he been threatening to you?
Yeah. At that time in life, yeah. Yeah. When we were younger, no. He was so playful, and I looked up to him so much. But yeah, at that time, I mean, I think that might have been when he was about 17 or 16. But when he started, maybe around 14 or 15, maybe 15, he started to just be explosive and angry. He was no longer funny. I never saw him smile after a certain point in time. He was less erratic than my mom. Like, my mom was this scary person, and then she'd be like just this real playful, like just euphoric and fun. And my brother just went to scary town. Yeah, very dark, but chaotic in that darkness.
Do you think you recognized as a girl that something was wrong with your mom, or just that's the way she was? Like, it's so hard to remember how we thought when we were kids, but yeah, I just wondered if you just sensed like this is what moms do, or that there was something about your mom that was very, very different.
I think when I was younger, I just thought this is how moms are. Moms don't pick you. You're the last one in the parking lot after school. They don't pick you up. Like, they're crazy sometimes, and then they spend time, days in bed with the lights out. And I thought it was normal. I think it wasn't until my parents had just gotten a divorce or separated. I don't even think the divorce had finalized, but I had chosen to live with my mom. She let me do whatever I wanted. And I was 13, and that sounded fun. She'd buy me cigarette, she supported all the things I was wanting to do. So of course I didn't want to live with Dad, my dad had always been my person, my best friend. And so at 13, I kind of switched alliances. And when I noticed that she was that there was something wrong, something not right, or something, those are the words I felt in the moment. I hate the words wrong or right, but that's how it felt in the moment. She was upset with me about something, and I don't even remember what it was, but she was calling me a bitch and a slut and just yelling at me, screaming at me. And we were standing right outside of the kitchen, and she was like, just fucking go live with your dad. And I was like, okay. And I started to like turn and walk away, and she was like, just go ahead and call him. And she had the portable phone and just hit me across the face with it. And I was pretty shocked because she hadn't ever hit me like that. I mean, she had, used branches before and leashes before sometimes to like, when I was younger, but she had never hit me across the face like that. I started to kind of run away, and she chased after me and climbed on top of me, and we kind of had a scuffle. I don't really remember it too much. And then I ran upstairs, and I was like, oh my gosh, what just happened? And I called my dad. I don't really remember how much time went by, but the doorbell rang, and I answered the door. And this is when I knew. A cop was standing there, and my mom just standing there with her face completely scratched up, and her neck was like, and the cop was like, you attacked your mom. Yeah, it was that moment that I was like, whew, this is, and I was 13. I was like.
And she'd done that to herself.
She had done that to herself, yeah. She had, she always had real long artificial nails. And she had done that to herself. I had called my dad, and I remember my dad's car pulling up. And I don't really remember much after that. I obviously went home with my dad, and that was one of the last times I saw my mom. But yeah, that was...
Ever in your life?
Ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like, we had talked about this before, and preparing for this story, things really took a downturn for her after you left.
Yeah. So I didn't talk to her after I left. I lived with my dad. We lived in a little apartment in Coral Springs. Before this podcast, I started to think more about like how the integration part of what I've been through, which I chose to just move on from, how to think more about that and be more conscious of how that might come up, and just give that more energy than I had ever given that. And through that, of course, I was talking to my dad, and I talk about everything pretty much. And so I had been talking to him about what was coming up for me and asking his thoughts about it. And so he said, I don't know if you ever knew this, but about 6 months after my mom had been living alone, apparently, all of my childhood animals and, the animals that we had as a family had died. All of them. And when I say all of them, like we had, I may not get the numbers right, but 2 horses, 3 or 4 dogs. I think one lived, the youngest Springer Spaniel. We had 2 indoor cats. We had barn cats. We had 2 cockatoos. Beautiful, huge, big birds. 2 ferrets. And they all died. All of them.
All under your mom's care.
Yeah.
Care.
Yeah.
Quote unquote.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, I wonder if it's almost like when you left, any sort of caretaking effort there was, or maybe she just gave up? Or were you taking care of all those pets, or how?
My dad took care of the pets usually. And I was 13, so of course I did sometimes. But I think once my dad left, very sporadically, she was probably taking care of them. And then once I left, whether she fell into like a really bad depression maybe, or she wasn't very good at taking care of things to begin with, I don't know. But 2 horses, it's really hard to kill a horse. Yeah.
So, as an early teenager, you escape the chaos of your mom and move in with your dad, seeming calm. But sort of the aftershocks of her chaos play out, but maybe in ways that you didn't understand at the time, and maybe only understood many years later.
Yeah, I think it's good to maybe talk about who I was in my family before I descended into maybe who I was also in my family, but pre all the comprehension of the chaos, maybe getting to be about maybe 8 or 9, which is when I kind of that's when my eating stuff started. The eating stuff is interesting because for me, I definitely developed a lot sooner than my friends did. But there was something about my mom was like this Southern belle, and her mom was, the country club Southern woman. And there was a time that is very vivid for me of being kind of like 8 or 9. And I was a tomboy and had a bowl cut that was growing out. So it was very awkward. I wore this baseball cap and just as, what 8 or 9-year-old isn't awkward. I didn't feel awkward though, but the moment I started to actually realize how my body felt in space, my grandmother was she had made this Grand Marnier dip. It was I don't know, it was crab and spinach and cheese. It was delicious. And I had just been eating it. And my grandmother said some comment on how much I was eating or how it was going. I don't even really remember the comment. I just remember the moment. And my mom was just quiet. I remember she was standing up and my grandmother was sitting down. And we both were sitting down and my mom just stood there in silence. And I remember going into the kitchen and grabbing my belly as an 8 or 9-year-old and grabbing all the stomach that's there and being oh. So I think while the destruction that I think my soul descended into a little bit afterwards, when I was 13, I think it started when I was 8 or 9, probably. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's your sense of, in terms of the etiology of the eating disorder? Do you look back and feel like that was completely an outgrowth of trauma and the chaos with your mom? Or, as you've gotten to know yourself better over the years, is there part of you that wonders, would that have developed anyway? If you'd been in a warm crucible of love without all this chaos?
That's a really good question. What resonates with me most is that my eating disorder and my cutting were soothing and a place of just control. They were coping mechanisms. Mm-hmm. It was the thing that I could do that no one else had over me that provided solace. Mm-hmm. So to answer your question, no, I really don't think so. Mm-hmm. I don't think so.
How did your relationship with your self-harm and the eating disorder, how did that evolve through your teenage years?
Well, the cutting kind of came from, I had these really, what I now know are intrusive thoughts. I didn't know that when I was younger. Just vivid imagery of my shaver, the razor, and cutting myself and then blood. And I didn't do it for a long time, but every time I took a shower, every time I was going to the bathroom and saw the razor, I just for months. And finally, one time when I was taking a bath, I thought, I just did it. I cut. As an adult, I don't really think much about that, but through this, I've thought a lot about that. And, oh God, yeah, this is, I don't do crying well.
You're doing a wonderful job. Yeah.
Yeah. I cry like puppies and old people, but this type of crying is this is good for me. That feeling, having to go back and think about that moment and that feeling I can literally feel it again. It felt so good. It literally was like, just this, like, everything got so calm and so peaceful. And so of course I was like, this is amazing. And it became, I mean, it was like it literally was like heroin. I mean, yeah. And then it became something I just did all the time. It was very ritualistic, which was also soothing. And it was never something I was like, I want to die. It was always just this like methodical, soothing rush and release and like floaty, like absolutely the opposite of the way my mom made me feel. And the cutting had started when my parents were still together. So that had started before kind of the realization of who my mom was and how crazy. I mean, it had started probably a year or a couple years before that. So if I was 13, I was probably maybe 11 or so, maybe when the cutting started.
And how did the eating just sort of fit in with that? Like, did you see them both as sort of, you know, if you will, coping strategies that worked well, or did they have a different, I don't know, did they serve a different role, or did you use them in different parts of your life, or?
They really accessed the same, like they were the same to me, because the eating, it felt so good to have control over something. And now looking back on it, realizing how chaotic my mom was, just to be able to have something that was mine, that I could be. And I did have, I mean, now knowing what it was, I mean, I was having like a lot of obsessional, sticky, like things happening. And so it was so soothing, the methodical, like, it was soothing. And then, you know, I restricted at first for a really long time. I didn't start the bulimia or that part of it until later. But for many years, it was just restricting, and just the calmness that came from that was the same calmness that I got when I cut.
Did you ever worry that you were going to become your mom? Like that you were going to grow up into, you know, that kind of chaos?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that thought didn't come until after, when I was living with my dad. But by that time I was just like full on in my eating disorder, but also like somehow getting really good grades and an amazing athlete, but cutting a lot and a lot deeper, like everything just got. And I started partying and drinking a lot and doing all the drugs. And so that made, obviously, my mood became, now with reflection, incredibly dysregulated. And I just felt, I felt chaotic inside. I felt like and I had the thought, I am becoming my mother. Yeah, I did have that thought.
Yeah. Gosh, that's so scary.
Yeah.
What did it look like, that path? You know, as you said, you found self-soothing and calming, and then it became more and more chaotic as you bring in substances and probably all the sleep and mood dysregulation of that. How did you start to move out of that? I mean,
I think I quit partying so hard, at least with a moment that is really clear to me was I was sitting in my room and the music was just like so loud. And I went over and I turned my, it's like 5-disc CD player off. And literally I had turned the music on. And that scared the shit out of me. Yeah. So I just snapped out of that part of what I was doing. And I was playing soccer on the number one club team up in Denver. So I'd drive like 2 hours to practice. And so my soccer kind of started to fall apart. Things just started to fall apart a little bit.
And you were able to self-correct? Like there wasn't, your father or somebody else who stepped in and said, "Hey, we gotta help you."
My dad was always there, and he knew absolutely what I was doing. But he had this sense of like, if I hold her close, if I try to like tether this like wild like creature, she's going to run. And it will get worse. Like, I've never asked him that. I should ask him that. But that's my sense. And just knowing that, like knowing that my dad like knew, but like never said anything, I always kind of self-tethered a little bit. And I think he always created this just place of solace and unconditional love. And I was always fairly honest with him. And through that, it was like, I just healed through that a little bit, and I got older. I think the further away I got from my mom, I wanted to play college ball, but that didn't work out because I was a mess. And then I ended up playing rugby actually when I was 17. And that I think is kind of when my life started to turn around, was being able to be around a group of really healthy women that were like a family.
Mm-hmm. And you needed to be physically strong. Like you can't be starving yourself or purging too much. Like if you don't take care of yourself, how are you going to play rugby?
Yeah. That you bring up a really good point, because I played flanker, which is like, if you think about soccer, like midfield, so they move around and do everything, but they also do a lot of the tackling. And I just had so much aggression that I apparently needed to get out.
Who knew?
Who knew? They called me Tackle Piggy. Like, I mean, I was 17. All the women were like in their late 20s and 30. I was the youngin'. But it just felt, and I had, deep cuts in my arm, and I had superficial cuts going all the way up.
I mean, self-inflicted cuts. Yeah.
Self-inflicted, yeah. And I just remember it was the one place where I felt like nobody stared at him or like thought like, God, how fucked up are you? They
probably
loved me.
thought you found the right place. They're like, Christina, if you're going to be in pain, come suffer for us.
Yeah.
Like you sacrifice your body for us. Yeah. Then at least it's for your team.
Yeah. And through that, I realized, I don't know, I just experienced like family love. And I think that's when I started to just get older and, I didn't want to do that anymore.
Yeah. But I love that idea. It actually combines these things, because as you know, back from the Abyss is about how do people heal. You found community, family.
Yeah.
You found not just exercise, but you found something that, as you said, was violent. Mm-hmm. And you needed to be strong, and you could, you're going to get hurt in rugby, and you're going to hurt other people.
Yeah.
You could hurt yourself in the bathtub with your razor, or hurt yourself by starving yourself, or you could get out and actually throw your body in front of people. Yeah. To help your team. Yeah. It kind of seems like the perfect healing plan, if you will.
And then afterwards you go out, it's like war against each other. And you're like, there's moments where you're like on the bottom of a ruck and you feel somebody like walking over you with their cleats and like purposely scraping at your back. And then afterwards everybody goes out and parties together, and like the person that scraped your back comes over, and like, so there's like chaos and fighting, if you will, or playing. And then afterwards there was like healing, and like we're together and we're all a family, even though we were against. So that I feel like was healing as well.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, looking back, do you think let's say, self-harm, like, did that significantly decrease through the process of playing rugby and being on the team and finding community?
Yeah. Yeah, it did. It became less and less frequent. I also became, when I did do it, I felt more shameful about it. And so I started to hide it more. And so I would cut underneath my breast, my left breast. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I never, they were pretty, like, I have keloids and it's been a pretty embarrassing thing, for that vulnerable, I mean, obviously when that's visible, it's in a more of an intimate setting, and that's always something I don't share with people. And so that has always been something like, whoa. So like, sex has always been, for the first time, right, when somebody sees that, they obviously see a lot more about it's not like I can be like, ooh, let's sexy time, let's have fun. It's like sexy time now. You can, I've been like to a real fucked up place, so that, I've gotten over that, but yeah. And it maybe in my late 20s is probably the last time I did it. It got more and more fewer and far between, and then yeah.
And what about the course with the eating disorder and body image? Did that track similarly, or was that a longer, more protracted battle?
Oh, I don't think that ever goes away. I think anybody with eating stuff, it's like just a part of you. I mean, especially because I feel like I started so young, like you just kind of accept it as like part of you. The eating behaviors quieted down a little bit, but it is always a constant struggle, I think it always will be to a certain extent.
How does what you went through as a kid, all those years of self-harm and eating disorder and pulling out of that and getting healthier, like, how does that inform the work that you do today as a psychiatric NP?
I think all my life, I'll start there. I have always been kind of like the one to bring home all the injured animals, like all the all the things. And I just wanted to I'm a nurse. And I think I always have been. And it's no surprise to me, having gone into hospice and palliative care, all the grief and loss and from becoming a nurse to the first role I choose to go in is usually nurses usually go into hospice and palliative care when they're leaving the profession. And I'm like, no, I'm going to do that first. I'm going to go real deep, real hard, real first. But it felt like that's where I needed to be. I guess not everybody can sit with other people's pain and suffering. It's uncomfortable. And I'm not saying it's uncomfortable. It often is uncomfortable for me. But to be able to sit in it and be with people, not everybody can do that. And when you can, it's kind of like a superpower for others and for your community. It's kind of like this gift that you were given, right? So I feel like if you possess that gift, use it for your community. My favorite part of hospice and palliative care was being in it, was the talking. The medical stuff was, yeah. Okay, let's talk. Let's be together. Let's, what's your story? And so it made sense to transition into the role that I'm in now.
Yeah. Yeah, my sense is you were destined to be a psychiatric nurse practitioner. Maybe you you didn't start there. Maybe you had to go out and do, the very easy work of hospice. No. But yeah, you've kind of come full circle. I wonder if we might transition and be a little meta here and talk about the creation of this story. Because I asked you, maybe 4 months ago, if you tell your story, and my memory was that you were a little taken aback. and also my memory was that you sort of insinuated, or maybe just put it out there. You thought, I don't know that I really have a story to tell. Which, again, and we've spent many hours exploring this over the past few months with emails and phone calls and face-to-face talk about this. But it's abundantly clear to me that you have an incredible story. What's it been like on your end, going back to, me first asking you, hey, would you consider this, to going through the writing prompts and working through this with me, and what was revealed for you?
I've been thinking so much about this specific question because there's so much that I didn't realize was there that is there, which has been helpful. The first word that comes to mind is integration, how important that is in life and love and the work we do. I mean, integration, constant integration. And I have never integrated that part of my storyline into my life. I kind of chose, as I was kind of descending into I am becoming my mother's daughter, and then willfully being like, nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to choose, because I am also even more so my father's daughter. I'm going to choose nature and adventure and passion and love and curiosity. I think that I literally said, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to let this affect me, this being all the chaos. And I chose to move on. And so this exercise of yes, you moved on, but this happened, right? And how, anything, I now know that those were pretty big.
Because didn't you say something, Christina, early on when I was asking about what happened after your mom left, and you're like, well, then it was much better and things were fine, or something it was. And I was thinking as we talked more, wait, it was not fine.
Yeah, kind of fell apart.
That's maybe the cutting and eating disorder started before she was out of the picture, but no, things just spiraled.
Yeah.
But my sense is one of your greatest strengths is that you are really resilient. And you are just so fiercely able to just put your mind on something and just do it. And that served you so well. And it allowed you to bury a lot of stuff, to just sort of put the soil over it. Okay, it's fine. We're good. I guess my childhood was a little tough, but, all good once mom's out of the picture. And I don't know where she is, and my brother, I don't know. And we're good. My dad and I are good. We're good.
Yeah. I think part of this process has also let me exercise my rather underdeveloped muscle of vulnerability. Yeah. And it's been good. It's been good to, because even though I am resilient and I've chosen to move on from something, and that is actually, I feel like one of my superpowers is to be the acceptance of what is, which I talked a lot about in palliative care and grief and death. It's and even the acceptance, this is what it is. What happened to me happened. That is part of my story, and kind of just the acceptance of yeah, that is part of me. Is an important part to all of our journeys, I think. Yeah,
you had to not be vulnerable as a little girl and teenager. And yet now, as a wife and a friend and a psychiatric nurse practitioner and all these, you actually need, the more vulnerable you can be, the better.
Yeah.
And I know that's one of the things, as you and I have been putting this together, I've been gently and not so gently urging you to Christina, you can be really vulnerable, and you'll get a chance to, again, you'll get to hear this story before it publishes. But I think there's so much, I believe there's so much value in being as vulnerable as we can be in the right context, in the right place. And I mean, what's that process been like for you? Again, one, just sharing, because again, we knew each other, but through the process of putting this together, you would send me writing prompts and sharing things with me that I didn't know. Like I didn't know the depth of what you'd been through. And there are times, like I got one of your emails late at night, and I was reading your prompts, and I thought, wow. And one thing I thought a couple of things. I felt so much gratitude that you trusted me with that. And two, I just thought, wow, there's a lot there. And I was just wondering what that was like on your end to just trust me first, and then ultimately all the listeners with this.
Yeah, that has been easy and not so easy. And I think it actually started before developing this podcast, when we kind of first met. And I started that, like, I need to integrate, I need to dig in that sand and look at that, pull it out, start to like remember it. That part was kind of hard. So I would say since like maybe a year or so ago, like I've been trying to remember more pieces of it and what it means. And one pivotal point for me actually was last summer. My wife and I went to Pensacola Beach, and that's where my mom had grown up. So we spent a lot of time there growing up. And it was the last day, and my wife went deep sea fishing, and I was like, I just need to something in me was like, I just need to sit and be. I had told myself I wanted to watercolor, which I'm trying to teach myself to watercolor, and I hadn't done it yet. So I was like, I need to do that before I leave. And I sat on the deck of our condo, which was right on the beach. And it was just this beautiful day, and the ocean was like glass. I had my coffee, and I was just like looking out, and it was so incredibly peaceful. And I felt so close to my mom, which was so fucking weird. And such a peaceful place to feel so close to somebody so chaotic. And I hadn't felt that close to her in a very long time. And this happened just, last summer, thinking about all this stuff. And it was the first time that I had actually let myself cry, because I've never really been angry at my mom or sad. I've just been like, okay, it is what it is.
Which, if I could point out, that's nice. but also, what?
Yeah.
Not angry or sad.
Right.
Yeah, sorry.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the vulnerability piece, right? Mm-hmm. And allowing myself to kind of soften to the ocean air and just allow myself to, before I cried, the last thought I had was, wow, my mom, I've never been loved by a mom. I've never had the mom story, I never had that. And then looking out on where she probably ran as a kid, I was like, she probably never did either. And that's when I was like, yeah. And it felt good. So that was the beginning, I think, of really cracking open to the vulnerability of all this. And then through the practice of these questions and talking to you in a more guided way was a synthesis to vulnerability and integration that was more helpful than I even thought. I was like, yeah, I'll do the podcast. Sure, no problem. And then when you first sent me the questions, it took me forever to write that stuff down, because I was like, I couldn't, even just putting language to it and accessing that vulnerable place.
Yeah. My hope with all the stories has been that the storytelling is integration, as you said. And I think watching you go through this process and working through this with you, you really have been integrating. I think even as we record this today, like I can tell, like you're pulling things together in ways that make sense, and some that are really painful to even put words to. But I just love this idea of storytelling as integration, and I think you've exemplified that more than anyone in recent memory of watching you walk through this.
Yeah, I've felt that.
I wonder if we might wrap up on this topic of resilience, because again, I pointed out a couple times today that, I mean, to me, you are like the poster child for resilience. and you know, that comes at a cost, because I often say to my patients, you know, if you're overly sensitive, that can cause you some real problems. But the opposite of being overly sensitive is being insensitive. And I can imagine there were significant parts of your life where going inward, being insensitive, being shut down, being dissociated, whatever, stuffing it, whatever metaphors you want to use, was exactly what you need to do and what resilient kids would do. But that came at a cost. So yeah, I'm wondering, again, with resilience in your own life, how you think about that, and also, you know, as you're working with patients and families.
Yeah, how it actually is a positive thing and how it's a negative thing, maybe? Yeah. Positively, it has allowed me my whole life to be able to be very, very calm in situations that everybody's running around with their head cut off, sort of a thing, or people are like it because I feel like that is part of my resilient soul, is like, you know, everything's going to be okay. We don't know what okay looks like, but it's going to be okay. We just have to keep moving forward. That's the key. Like, don't stop. Just keep moving forward, but don't stop. So that, I feel like, is positive in my own life and relationally, but also as a clinician to be able to, I think it's important to see suffering, to witness suffering so that people don't feel alone in it, and to also say, hey, it's okay, keep going. It's okay to keep going. You're not alone. You can keep going, and you're supported in that. And so I know we had, through this process, one of the questions that came up was, can you learn resilience, or is resilience innate? That's hard to, right? Like, what do you think?
I think it's really innate.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, the temperament, personality research suggests that, but I really think, like, you know, I've used this metaphor on the podcast before. I think little kids, or even little babies, are like a poker hand, you know? Some kids are a full house. Like, some kids are dandelions, man. You just put them out there, give them a little water and some shoes, and they're going to figure out how to live. You know? And other kids, even with seemingly all the advantages and love, and they just melt. But I think, you know, when I look at your story of resilience, I think you have some really key qualities in that you're fiercely determined. You know, you had adults you could turn to. You had your dad. Like, as ill as your mom was, you had your dad. You know, you sought out community on teams, and you, even as you're struggling with body image and eating disorder stuff, you're still like a super athlete, and you're finding the joy of competing and using your body for the wonderful things it can do, while also being very judgmental of it. And even one could argue your choice in career, like, that is such a move towards, I think, health and resilience. You could imagine an unhealthy, less resilient person would have had to flee that. Like, I can't do anything related to taking care of other people or helping people in pain because there was so much pain around me. Mm-hmm. But, you went right into it, mm-hmm. which I think is exactly what we do when we're in our healthier place, is that we kind of walk into our shadow. We walk into the darkness and like, okay, bring it on. Mm-hmm. This is exactly where I need to be.
It's so interesting that you say that, because when I started undergrad, I was majoring in psychology, minoring in neuroscience. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be a psychologist. I'm going to, I had this like, this is what I want to do. Meanwhile, I'm like failing out of a semester of college because I'm, what now I know, in a total OCD, like meltdown, can't leave my house. Mm. And part of like in college at some point, I was like, I don't want to have anything. It was when I started to kind of engage that healthier side of myself. I was like, I want nothing to do with mental health. I want nothing to do with it. And so which is fun. So that was in my early 20s. And so going through life and then now kind of coming back, like you say, in your healthier space, to be able to be like, no, I can calmly and with both feet on the ground walk in to the shadows, not just mine, but others, and like be there and figure out how to navigate that. Yeah, I needed to go out and get a little street cred in like life beyond the darkness.
What were the key resilience factors that made it possible for Christina to move through her parent-child trauma? Well, first, I think we can't understate the critical importance of having one healthy parent. Much of the resilience research suggests that if kids in chaos can find at least one caring, mentoring adult, this can significantly improve their long-term chances of psychological health. Second, Christina clearly falls on the resilient end of the neuroticism to resilience spectrum. Identical twin studies show us that a major part, 50% or more, of our tendency to lean neurotic versus lean resilient is inherited. In other words, Christina's a dandelion. She grew where other, more orchidy kinds of people might not have made it. I think Christina's words exemplified the determined mindset of resilient people. When she said, quote, I chose to move on, and, quote, I had to keep moving forward, I think we're hearing how resilient people do everything possible to not dwell in the past and to see themselves as change agents, as people with the ability to seize control of their lives, even after experiencing periods of helplessness and powerlessness as children. I'm reminded of what the writer David Foster Wallace learned about the mindset of exceptional athletes. He came to believe that the difference between the best athletes and the rest of us is their single-minded ability to focus on the important stuff, to see only the ball, and not the lights or the cameras or the fans or feel the mounting pressure. And for Christina, the ball was her single-minded determination to keep moving forward, knowing that she could take the power, that she had the gifts of self-determination and connection.